YouTube, what's happening? You on that Facebooks yet?
Just about.
Why is our YouTube one always a little bit of this gangster lean, Andy?
Because what's up, Facebook? Because you don't believe in leveling it out before we start.
Okay. So Facebook folks, we record simultaneously, as the English say on movies. At least the English bad guy always says that, right? Like in James Bond films. Our YouTube camera's always got this little cocked kind of angle, right? I guess they call that, was that a Dutch angle in filmmaking? Gives it more intrigue?
Yeah, but that's usually like more extreme.
All right, well, this is the American angle, dog. It's slightly
Just a little bit off.
Slightly extreme. So.
Right.
All right, so welcome to the Protect Your Family live show. We are recording our podcast for those who are in the iTunes podcast directory world, but we go live on YouTube and Facebook every week. And this is our first one post-Christmas, correct?
Yep, in the new year of 2019.
Oh, snap, bringing the new year to you. All right, so we are talking about hazing today. Earlier in the week, I shared an article on our private bully prevention group in our local community about a hazing tradition.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the hazing today. So anyway, I'll let Andy kick this one off, and I will be chilling, sipping my coffee, weighing in with those pieces, those nuggets of information that are so golden.
Nice. So obviously hazing covers just a wide range of possibilities of things that could be done to people, of things that people have to do. To be cheesy, I'm going to read the definition of it because, everyone likes to hear a definition. It's any activity expected of someone joining or participating in a group that humiliates, degrades, abuses, or endangers them regardless of a person's willingness to participate.
And can I talk about the story that we shared?
Go for it.
So we shared a story, apparently the Denver Broncos, I'm not from Denver, I may have been in an airport there once, so I don't follow Denver Broncos, but apparently the Denver Broncos have some tradition where the rookies, senior players, shave the rookies' heads, or don't shave their heads, they give them ridiculous haircuts.
Yeah.
How long the rookies are supposed to have these, I don't know, but they are absolutely ridiculous haircuts, and one of the things that shocked me about it was that I immediately saw this as hazing. Because what grown adult who's gone through a lot of struggles to become an NFL pro, risked injury, gone through injury, had made sacrifices, wants to finally achieve the peak of their career, then to be degraded and have a stupid haircut put on them. These are grown adults doing this to each other, right?
Yeah.
The craziest thing about it, though, was the media. All the media stories I saw about this. This is something that the media and the fans think is great. I personally disagree.
Right.
So.
And, is a haircut endangering anyone? No, it's more about just the concept of it, in this situation. But the thing about the coverage on that is that everyone's like, oh, this is hilarious, this is great, but then as soon as a headline comes up where someone gets hurt during a hazing ritual, it's, oh, we gotta ban, and it's actually illegal in most states.
To haze people?
To haze people.
Okay. Well, it just goes under different names nowadays, though.
Right.
Well, what I said also with that article was, let's say, take any kind of other endeavor, job endeavor. The National Football League is in employment. They're an employer, correct? The Denver Broncos are an organization that employs people. So any other group where people would join, and the first step of the process was to be degraded and put out there on media for fun, the media would come down on it pretty hard, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If Abercrombie & Fitch, when you came on board at Abercrombie & Fitch, they made you take a permanent marker to your face and write "pretty boy" on your forehead or some nonsense like that. And then it got put out on Instagram and all that. No one would think this was cool.
Well, it's funny that you bring them up, too, because there was a controversy, it had to be like 8 years ago, something like that, where the CEO was talking about like why all the models look the same, why they're all this specific type of person, and the dude literally said, like, we don't want ugly people.
Oh,
like, yeah, or, people like that. Or said something awful about people who struggle with their weight, things like that, too.
What about bald
Real
people?
gem status.
Say anything about bald people?
I haven't seen bald people in their ads, so dude probably has an opinion about that, too.
So I was wondering why they never returned my calls.
Yeah. So, the first question that comes up is, like, why do people do this?
Why do people haze?
Yeah, why do people haze other people? Why do people tolerate it? And the thing you hear the most is always, oh, well, it makes them a better team, it makes them stronger, your bonds are, you bond over it and all this stuff, you kind of earn your way in. And don't get me wrong, there's no problem with having to earn something, right? right? We talked
Yes.
about this multiple times in this podcast of things have to be earned.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
But to become a part of a social club when you have to drink dangerous amounts of alcohol or, get beaten or whatever, that's when it becomes an issue.
Yeah, because that's not earning anything. It's like a punishment. And, we can stay on the Denver Broncos thing. It's like, well, those guys earned their right to be on the Denver Broncos by graduating high school as a football player, by most of them graduating college as a football player, showing a legacy of football skills throughout many, many years, and then being drafted to the team.
Yeah.
They've earned their right to be on the team as soon as they were drafted and signed the contract. So now they're like, oh, well, you have to go through this haircut ritual to earn your spot. Is crazy, and that goes back to. I guess do you have any other examples of like these types? When you mentioned, alcohol and other organizations. I mean, we have it in martial arts. We have it in all kinds of different.
Yeah, basically, if there's a group of people doing something together, there's most likely a hazing ritual involved. Like, not saying
the
every
potential
group.
one,
Yeah, I'm saying, like, in that category of things, there's gonna be some kind of ritual. Right?
Yes. Are we going to talk about any of the hazing in martial arts? Do you have a note for that or no?
I was actually planning on you telling your story,
Oh, so
Right.
like right now?
if you want. If you're not scared,
My story.
right?
Yeah, I'm definitely not scared. After going through the hazing, I'm not scared. Right?
Yeah.
So in various martial arts, there's different, again, rituals and traditions that you have to, I guess,
Experience.
experience, and boxes you have to check to be able to advance through the martial arts.
Yeah.
And some of them make sense, right? In Kempo karate, you have to learn your techniques, learn your katas, demonstrate time and rank. You have to spar. You have to do these types of things, right? Because that all ties into your skill as a Kempo karate martial artist.
Yeah.
And one of the rituals, at least in my arm of Kempo karate, when I got my black belt, senior instructor kicks you in the stomach. But it's not like you stand there in your horse stance and the instructor comes by and gives you a front kick to the body. Okay. But it's not done in a way like when Jeff gave me the front kick to my body. It wasn't done in a way where the goal was to hurt me. It was for me to demonstrate that I could, take a shot to my body, tense up my body. It was symbolic.
Yeah.
And there was no malice. It wasn't there to degrade me. It was actually there to show, hey, look, now, as a black belt now, he can take a shot to the body, amongst other things. That's what it was.
It's
for.
like combining physical and mental strength.
Yes. Now, in my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu lineage, when I went to purple belt, now some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools have this tradition, some don't. The lineage that I was coming through had a ritual, which is called the gauntlet. That's generally what it's known in. Most people who do Jiu-Jitsu probably know what the gauntlet is. Some schools do it, some schools don't. Most gauntlets, when someone gets promoted from one belt to the next, who's ever in class there the day they get promoted, they all take off their belts and you have to walk the gauntlet. And as you walk the gauntlet, the people whip you with their belts. Okay.
And let's just point out that most jiu-jitsu belts are not the light, thin martial arts belts that like most karate schools have. Jiu-jitsu belts are heavy and
Yes.
thick.
Yes. And for those who are uninitiated, Jiu-Jitsu is an art where striking as a sport is not allowed. In the sport of Jiu-Jitsu, you are not allowed to strike your opponent in any way, shape, or form. It's like an instant DQ.
Mm.
Even down to, there's been talk of if someone's trying to grab you in a Jiu-Jitsu grappling competition, you smack their hand away. You could be potentially DQ'd for that because you're not supposed to be striking. Now, again, using Jiu-Jitsu in self-defense, there's going to be striking, of course, but in the sport aspect of the art, there's no striking, right? So when I got my purple belt, our lineage required that you had to make the gauntlet pass for every belt that you've previously held and your new belt. So as a purple belt's the third in line. So when it came time for me to earn my purple belt, I had to, we also did it shirtless. I had to take my shirt off, be bare-chested, and walk the gauntlet up and back 3 times. My gauntlet had 26 or more people in it, I believe.
Yeah.
When I counted it was 150 lashes I took.
Mm.
And you've seen the video.
Yep. There's people there in like plain clothes that just brought their belts to do it.
Yep.
And
And some of them were going so hard that the embroidery on their belts was left on my body.
Mm.
And like one bystander said, it looks like they were swinging so hard they were leaving their feet. People cackling and laughing as they're doing it. And, but when I went into it, I knew this was going to happen. And as a karate practitioner as well, I wanted to prove that mindset can defeat sometimes this adversity. So I just was resolute in the fact that I wasn't going to wince, flinch, or making noise throughout this entire process. And I remember vividly walking through first, and one of the guy, Robert, who really laid into me. He laid into me really hard, and I didn't even blink. I just took it. He literally said, "What the heck?" He used different terminology.
Yeah, more colorful language.
But he was blown away by the fact that I didn't get fazed by it. Now, internally, it was killing me. It hurt really bad, but I just didn't show it. And the rest of that gauntlet, he didn't hit me hard because I'd mentally broken him. All right. Now, I did fail by the third pass, 125th lash or so. This guy Tony caught me with one where I made it like a kind of noise. So he helped me right on my solar plexus at the end of his belt as well. But my body was so red that when we went out afterwards I was one of the first purple belts promoted by my instructor under this lineage. It was a big deal. We all go out to have beers afterwards and fun and have some fries and appetizers kind of deal. I could only stay 20 minutes. I was so resentful, so angry, and in such pain, I couldn't even enjoy it. And I'd worked towards earning a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for years, absolute years. I'd gone through multiple injuries. I'd already blown my knee out once on the path to purple belt, broken both ribs, busted up my shoulder, busted up my elbow. There's a lot of things that I'd already done to show that I was dedicated to Jiu-Jitsu, to walk around, and I allowed it to happen. So I'm at fault for it. But what I'm getting at is, it didn't help build any kind of teamwork. It made me wish that these guys who were jiu-jitsu guys would come over to striking class one day and put on gloves and try to hit me that way. That's how I felt. I was very resentful by the whole practice. And I saw it happen again to another man who was older than me, whose kids were there when it happened in our lineage. And that's when I said, under my jiu-jitsu training, any of the jiu-jitsu I would not work at a school that does this.
Yeah.
So I found a jiu-jitsu training lineage that didn't believe in the practice, because I personally just don't believe in it myself. So that's a long story, but there it is.
Yep. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's lots of different ways people are hazed. There's physical hazing, like the belt whipping. There's, just humiliation. And there's the biggest one that you see, though, is alcohol related.
Yes.
Mostly in college is where you hear about it the most. And to get really specific, whenever the people are joining a Greek life organization, like a frat or a sorority, teams, even, like, for example, football teams, right?
Yeah.
Not just say football does it. Everyone, well, not everyone, but
Rugby teams,
a lot of teams
Clubs.
do it, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of surprising when you hear that more than half of college students that have joined any kind of organization, a club, a team, a social organization, whatever it is, more than half of them have been hazed, right? And I touched on this earlier. People say, build you as a team. There's been studies that have been done, and the study that I specifically read, they used 3 different surveys, right? They surveyed a couple football teams. And through these surveys, they found that the teams who had gone through hazing rituals, as opposed to, more appropriate team building activities, were actually less tight-knit. There was more resentment in that team. They didn't work as well on the field as the teams that went through, more appropriate team building activities, right?
Yes.
So even if that doesn't apply to every team, I'm sure there's groups out there that are closer because they hazed each other or whatever, right? It's just that fact alone, that these survey teams, it didn't help them at all. It had a negative effect, should make you think about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, and it's crazy. Because for me, again, I'm talking about my own experience. Let's go back to the belt whipping thing. One of our live audience folks asked if they had to do, if everybody had to go through that. In my lineage, yes, everybody walked through the gauntlet and took whippings, right? And whenever I was doing the whipping, I never even whipped hard. It was more of just a pop with the belt, just to symbolize what it's supposed to be in my mind.
Without hurting somebody.
Yeah, because the whole goal was you're not supposed to be hurting people, it's supposed to be building them up, right?
Right.
And then I just decided not to participate because it's not something I believe in overall, right? And where do these things come from? I don't know. I think you talk about the college thing. It's when you think college and you think clubs, you think, oh, you have to go through your initiations, right? It's a tradition. It was like, who started these traditions? And just because something's a tradition doesn't mean it's good.
Right. There's been many examples in history of traditions that weren't good.
Yes.
So, I want to talk a little bit about the dangers of it.
Okay.
I mean, of course, there's harmless things, physically harmless things like getting the stupid haircut or, whatever, right?
Well, I mean, it's physically harmless, but what does it do to that person's psyche? And again,
Exactly.
how much resentment does it build?
Exactly.
Right? That's all right.
But the examples I'm about to talk about were specific Greek life examples.
Okay.
A couple of these were last year and were pretty widely known, and one of them is a little bit older but happened in our area. So these three are all deaths, unfortunately. The first one I'm going to talk about happened last year, or I'm sorry, 2017, to a guy named Tim Piazza.
Okay.
He was 19, he was going to Penn State, and he had to run what they called the gauntlet. And in this gauntlet, you had to drink 18 alcoholic drinks in less than 90 minutes, which I don't have to tell you is an insane amount of alcohol.
Yeah, it seems like a fruitful enterprise.
Right.
Come on now.
And
It's ridiculous.
unsurprisingly, with how dangerous, with how much alcohol was involved, things got really dangerous for this guy really quickly. I'll kind of shorten it up because there's a lot of more upsetting details and there's a lot of details to this, but I'll simplify it. He was so intoxicated that when he was trying to make his way down the stairs to the basement, he fell, hit his head, and injured his body. Right. When he hit his head, obviously he went unconscious because you can't fall down concrete steps and be okay at the end.
Yeah.
Basically, they dragged him onto a couch. Right. This frat. He at some point regained consciousness, rolled off the couch, and fell. Right. The members, and there's actually footage of this, picked him up and slammed him back on the couch, beat him, poured beer on his face, right, and left him. And there's obvious signs of him being
Trauma.
in bad shape. Yeah, he actually had internal bleeding because one of his organs ruptured.
Gosh.
Right. It's really bad. Next day, he kind of regains consciousness, but obviously, he's messed up. He's bleeding internally. He's got a head injury. Keeps falling down over and over and over, right? Basically, they ended up getting to the point where they realized this is bad, we need to get him to the hospital as soon as possible, but they ended up trying to clean him up first, like wash off the blood, get him dressed and stuff. He ended up going to the hospital and dying in the hospital, and they estimated his blood alcohol content to be like 0.4 at the time, which is really, really high, just for time's sake. The next one was a man named Maxwell Groover. He's 18, going to Louisiana State, doing a Bible study ritual where they ask him trivia questions about the Bible, and if you get it wrong, you have to take a drink. He ended up getting alcohol poisoning and died because his blood alcohol content was 0.495. Right. Now, obviously, these are two very extreme cases and very unfortunate cases, but it should make you think, like, what's the point of it?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
I mean, when I was a college man, the prospect of joining fraternity had some benefits, right?
Mhm.
All right, you're like, oh, it's social life. As a young college man, I may be getting a little too personal on this one, but as a young college man, I was interested in meeting college ladies,
Mhm.
and joining fraternity seemed like a good avenue to do that, right? However, when I found out, it's like, oh, well, the hazing was part of it. I'm like, well, I'm not going to join some organization where I acquiesced to taking verbal, physical abuse from somebody. At that point, I was like a brown belt in karate. I'm going to stand there and let somebody beat on me or force me to do things I don't want to do. It didn't compute in my head. So it very quickly became an easy decision for me. And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus who's listening to this, who did go through hazing to join a fraternity. It just wasn't that important to me to go through that, and I didn't feel that it was going to be good for me. It wasn't a good situation to put myself in. I had a feeling how I'd react to certain things that would be said or forced upon me.
Mhm.
I wouldn't react well to it, so I didn't do it. Unfortunately, imagine being the parents of these two young people. And
Yeah.
you send your kid off to college, you think that it's helping them get their life, off in a good direction, and they end up dying over it. It's crazy.
Right.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things about it too is that if you talk to someone about a gang, how you have to get jumped into a gang, people are like, oh man, that's insane. Why would you do that? Why would anyone do that? But then if you say, oh well, to join a frat, everyone's got to punch you 5 times. It's like, oh well, that's all. And people are all excited about it. And everything. It's literally the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's probably less people dying in a gang initiation. Obviously more people die in gang, activities than in
Yeah.
fraternities. But you probably don't have that many people getting beaten to death in a gang jumping.
Right.
Even when gangbangers know how to rein it in better than college people, it's like, come on now.
Yeah, and it's not just limited to alcohol stuff too. There's abuse in a physical way where it's like if you don't do this, Yeah, I'm just gonna have to go through it. There's the last one that I
Torture tactics.
Right.
Yeah.
The third one I was going to talk about actually happened at ECU, I almost said East Clayton, East Carolina University in Greenville, right?
Yeah, it's about right.
Yeah. There was 2 girls that died as a result of this, unfortunately. It ended up being a car crash that killed them, but the reason why the car crash happened is because of the hazing activities that took place over a week, right? A week long, just like torture, basically. Right. To give examples of the things they had to do, they had to hold wall sits for extended periods of time, push-up positions for a long time, stand on one leg. Standing on one leg. There was one where they had to sit in a chair and hold bricks over their head, which, if you've ever tried to hold anything over your head for an extended period of time, your arms get tired. Imagine holding bricks over your head. Hot sauce on lips, eating raw onions, eat large amounts of cottage cheese and buttermilk in order to make you sick and throw up. Right, so there was 3 girls. They were so exhausted and everything. At the end, they were actually on their way to the initiation ceremony, so they had actually gotten through the hazing. But the driver of the vehicle had taken part in this, as I might have mentioned. She ended up falling asleep at the wheel. There was an collision, and the other 2 girls in the car died, and the driver did not. The driver ended up pleading guilty to misdemeanor death by motor vehicle because of hazing activities.
Yeah.
Right, just because they wanted to join a sorority.
Yeah. You know, it's like, it's, when you're saying like to hold the bricks above your head, it sounds like things like the Navy SEALs do during Hell Week.
Right.
Never been a Navy SEAL, never claimed to be one, unlike some martial arts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen it on TV, and I've seen what they've talked about. But that, again, with maybe you can call it Buds Week hazing or not, but there's a difference. Buds is weeding out. It's got to get the most mentally tough people in the world.
Yeah,
combat missions.
Yeah, putting someone in a combat situation is different from joining a group of people just to feel better about yourself.
And even I don't think the Navy SEALs put hot sauce in your lips because again, there's no practical combat application to that skill.
Yeah.
Right, but being able to do calisthenics and be in cold water for long periods of time, I see how that makes sense in a combat zone.
Be able to think clearly during high stress situations, that applies. But being in a social group in college, I don't think you need experience in those fields.
Yes. So anyway,
but yeah, it got kind of heavy on this podcast. I know, talking about the negative things, but I really wanted to talk about these not only to kind of open people's eyes to how severe and how insane it can get, but also kind of draw attention to these people that lost their lives as a result of some. Honestly, in my opinion, you might not agree with this, but honestly, it's how I feel. It's stupid. There is no point to this.
Nope. I agree 100%. There's no point to any of it in any way, shape, or form that you're going to convince me of. I'd love to have a debate with somebody and hear their thoughts, but yeah, it's nonsensical, all of it, right? If it's, I'm not saying we have to avoid hardship as joining certain clubs. I'm not saying that, but things that are designed just to demean and test your toughness make no sense, right? At all. And why we're on this anti-bully, I guess, mindset right now. 2019, Revolution Modern Martial Arts, Andy, myself, we're really focused on making an impact on our local community in the realm of bullying. And hazing, to me, obviously is a form of bullying. Yeah. Right? And
it's like the kids in school, well, if you want to be friends with us, you can't do that. Or, if you want to play with us, you have to, go do this. It's literally the same thing.
It literally is. Yes, absolutely. It's done under the guise of a team building and camaraderie, and it's not. It's crazy.
No.
Right? And it's one of those things where people who, I don't know, it's like the ones who go through it, I can see somebody who goes through it becoming more resentful and becoming more sadistic because then they're waiting for their chance to do it to somebody else.
The thing about a lot of this, too, is that when people are going through these things, there's oftentimes someone taking pictures or filming, so that if you ever do anything that's not in line with that organization, they can just pull it out and, basically blackmail you, embarrass you and keep humiliating you.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't stop after you're initiated. It never will.
Yep.
It's just,
It's kind of like in the bad, B gangster movie where, the undercover cop is put into a situation where he's got to, do drugs or kill somebody to prove that he's actually really not a cop or whatever, and they keep, they keep the dirt on him. Yeah. Kind of, right? So I guess as parents, me as a parent, one of my goals is to help build my son to be a confident young man. I want to make it clear to him, that any organization that requires you to do these types of things to join that organization is not a good organization that you need to be a part of.
Yeah.
There may be good aspects of the organization, but as a whole, you don't need to partake in this, because no one has the right to abuse my son. No one has to, and I feel personally, no one has the right to abuse anybody. So I'm not going to willfully myself go into a situation where I'm going to be abused, nor am I going to condone my son to do it.
Yep.
I'm going to teach him to have, my goal is to teach him to have enough self-worth to be able to stand up against those things. And again, I'm not trying to throw anybody on the bus and say if you went through hazing events, you don't have enough self-worth. But what I am saying is that
You're
having more confidence, surprise, will allow you to avoid these types of things, because you can get fulfillment somewhere else,
exactly.
right?
Yep, and by being okay with this and by
Condoning it?
you're just the bully problem in America and the world just gets worse, because there's another statistic, because I've actually got a sheet full of statistics in front of me.
Stat man.
Yeah, I did my research. 35% of people that were surveyed think that hazing has a place in schools, teams. Like, it was a pretty broad thing. In schools, organizations and teams, whatever, do you think hazing has a place? And 35% of people said yes.
Yeah, that's kind of staggering. Honestly.
It's insane.
Yes.
Right? So, I guess if you have a child that's going into college, or even in high school, going into high school, this is something that I think you need to talk to them about. You can, kind of open their eyes to it, like, dude, it's not worth it,
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, honestly.
It does. And again, it's one of these things where, like on our football team in high school, there was the freshman team, one day during lunch, the senior players made them do calisthenics in front of everybody, jumping jacks and push-ups and all that type of stuff. Grand scheme of things, it's harmless, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, the seed there gets planted for a lot of young men. Okay, well, all right, well, to be part of the team, I have to be demeaned a little bit. Okay, I take my medicine, and everybody's going through it. Now you're a sophomore, you don't have to do it. You're a sophomore now, you're proctoring the freshman doing it. And then we go off into college, and it's like, okay, well, now the hazing, that needle moves more, right?
Yep.
The extreme nature of the hazing, the needle moves further, right? So it's just something that, we just shouldn't abide in any way, shape, or form. Again,
Yep.
if it's a legitimate hardship as part of the club organization to help build you into a more productive member, I understand it.
If it's something that actually applies to
Yes.
what you're doing.
But, if it's just done for a spectacle or to demean somebody, then it's not needed at
Yep.
all, right? And the thing you were talking about with 35% of people think hazing's okay, I think where we as a culture are struggling with this is that we are, to use a bully phenomenon term, we are part of the bystander effect. Because
Yep.
in bully situations, there's the person engaging in the bullying behavior, there's the victim of the bullying behavior, and then there's the bystander effect of people who are who are not stopping it and are not participating in it by being there and being a bystander. They're emboldening
Mm-hmm.
the one who's engaging in the bullying behavior. So if we're passive bystanders to these hazing events, by not coming down and saying it's inappropriate,
Mm-hmm.
If we're just kind of sweeping under the rug or not paying attention to it, we are actually supporting the behavior, because we're not coming out as adults and saying this is not appropriate, it should be happening.
Exactly. That's actually something I wanted to touch on too, is the first case I talked about with Tim Piazza. This fraternity, this particular chapter, I don't know about the fraternity as a whole. I believe the fraternity as a whole now has to be alcohol free. But during this time, the victim was underage, and B, that chapter was supposed to be dry, meaning no alcohol, and they still did it, right? So you can't just depend on someone to make a law and all of a sudden it goes away. Hazing's illegal in a lot of states. This is something that people need to take an active role in and not tolerate anymore and make the change. It's just like the cyberbullying thing, saying, oh, that's awful, and just doing nothing about it doesn't help anybody.
Mhm.
You have to be active in it. You have to, if you see it happening, you have to step in. It's things like that, right?
Yep.
So-
And again, teaching our kids that it's not okay, you shouldn't participate in it.
Yeah,
one way or
value
the other.
yourself more than that,
Yep.
right?
And value other people. Demeaning somebody else for your own enjoyment is never good.
Right.
Simple.
Why not build each other up instead?
Precisely.
Right. So this is definitely a more serious podcast, but it's something that's important to us, and we brought to you guys. So I appreciate you guys watching, listening, sharing. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, so if you like the content of our show, as always, we ask you to do a couple things for us to help us, because we don't advertise the show and we're not in it to make money. We're just trying to create this conversation to help people out.
Yeah, that's all good.
I turned it down. We create this content not to make any money, but just to help folks out, create conversations, try to build our communities. So if you like what we talk about, make sure you put a thumbs up on our various channels. Maybe give us a review on podcast or your favorite podcast, iTunes. Give us a review on iTunes or your favorite podcast directory, and check out what we're doing. Now locally, if you are in the Clayton area and you're looking for a place for your kids to learn how to be more confident and learn how to defend themselves, stand up for themselves, and achieve goals, come check us out. ClaytonKarate.com, Revolution Modern Martial Arts.
Of course. And guys, if you disagree with us, I'd love to hear it. If you think it's okay, I would honestly be very interested in understanding why. Let's make it a conversation. If you think it has a place, you think it should be done a certain way, tell us. If you agree with us, definitely tell us. Tell everyone, right? All right. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you next time.
Boom.